Habakkuk 1, verses 1 through 5. O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not hear? Or cry to you violence, and you will not save? Why do you make me see iniquity? And why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. So the law is paralyzed, and justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous, so justice goes forth perverted. And the Lord replied to Habakkuk, look among the nations and see, wonder and be astounded. For I am doing a work in your days that you would not believe if told. So tonight we're going to be talking through trusting in God. Everybody say trust. Everybody say God. And so I know without a shadow of a doubt, we all in this room go through some tough times. We go through all these different things where it might be difficult for us to understand that there is a plan, that there is a purpose, and that there is a timing for all of it. And we see in this chapter, Habakkuk is going to the Lord and he's complaining. How many of y'all in this room ever complained to God? Okay, thank you for your honesty. Yeah. He's going to the Lord and he's complaining. He's saying, why are you doing nothing? I see all this happening, all this strife, all this destruction, all this evil, yet you're doing nothing. And I just love the response God gave to him. And he says, look among the nations and see, wonder and be astounded. For I am doing a work in your days that you would not believe if told. And so we're speaking through trusting in God tonight. So in Habakkuk 1, the prophet Habakkuk expresses his anger. He's seeing all these things go poorly in the nation of Judah, and he sees how bad these people are and how bad they're behaving. And so he goes to God and he just complains. And God tells him, just wait, just see, look around, be astounded and wonder because I'm doing something. And God told him, I'm going to send the Babylonians in to defeat Judah. And Habakkuk was furious because he's like, they're worse. They're worse than Judah. Why are you going to send them? Why are you going to use them? Habakkuk didn't understand. He didn't understand what God was doing in that moment. How many of you in this room sometimes, you just don't understand what God is doing in your lives? You don't understand why there is this sickness in your family. You don't understand why there is poverty around you. You don't understand what is going on poorly in your life and how God has a purpose for it. Well, tonight, we're going to get down to the root of it. We're going to talk about how God has a plan and how we as believers, everybody say we as believers, have to put our trust in God. My favorite part of that scripture is how God responded to Habakkuk's complaints. And he did so revealing that he was going to do something. And not only was he going to do something, right there in that moment, when Habakkuk didn't see it, he was doing something. He was making a way. He was making change. He was doing something in those cities. And so we have to trust God's authority. Everybody say God's authority. Now, when we face situations that might seem unfair, might seem a little bit injustice. We might feel a little bit injustice around these situations. You might be wondering why, home life is tough, Pastor Saul. You may be wondering why, I'm a little bit nervous to go to school coming up because there's that one kid that picks on me. Or you don't understand why there may be a sickness going around. We're going to talk through that and understanding that God has authority over every single situation. And so when we face those situations that, seem unfair, or when we see evil prospering, it's easy for us to question if God is even doing something. And Habakkuk was questioning if God even saw how bad Judah was and how bad these people were. One really cool thing God has given us and has blessed us with a lot of awesome things. One of the coolest things is this thing called free will. Everybody say free will. He gave us this free will, and that means we have the option, we have the ability to choose what we are going to do. We have the option to choose between good and evil, and God allows us to choose that. He doesn't tell us, hey, you have to follow me. He gives us that option to follow him. He gives us that option to accept him into our lives and allow him to have authority over our lives. He gives us that choice. And so he gives us also that great choice of following him and looking towards him. And he also gives us that choice of, choosing the other route, right? He gives us that opportunity to choose not to follow after him, to not seek him, to not look towards him. When we use that free will, we are showing our responsibility and we are showing accountability in our relationship with God. It's growing us. It's allowing us to become closer to him. Now, it can be really tough to trust that God is doing something when it just seems bleak, when it just seems like everything is rolling over you at one moment, when you don't see the path, when you don't see that map to the finish line, it can be hard to trust that God even has a plan. But we as believers, we as those who have accepted God into our hearts and live our lives for him, we have to have trust that his authority is above ours. And not only is it above ours, it's above the world. We live in a broken and fallen, evil world, right? There's a lot of bad stuff that happens here on earth. Let me just tell you, that bad stuff is not God. That sickness, that poverty, that is not the Lord. But the Lord has a plan through it. And we're going to get to that here in a second. The Lord has a plan through all of that stuff. Even when it's impossible for us to understand his plan, it's not for us to understand. At the end of that scripture I read from Habakkuk, it says, you wouldn't believe if I told you. So there's no point of us even knowing because we're not even going to believe it if he told us. But we have to have that trust in his authority. A little story for you. I know I've talked about it before, but my father, when I was young, he got diagnosed with this disease called muscular dystrophy. And it's where all the muscles in your legs start to deteriorate. And it works its way up through your body. And so my dad, from a very early age in my life, was in a wheelchair, or he was walking around the house with his two canes. And so it was really a difficult childhood for me in the sense that my parents were great, but it was really difficult seeing my father suffer through so much pain that he really didn't deserve. It was a difficult time for me and a difficult time for my family. But over the years, over maturing a little bit and trusting in God and just growing up, I've been able to see what God was doing throughout all that time. My father and my mother trusted God's authority over their marriage. They trusted God's authority over what was going on with my father, and that he had a plan for him. And my dad's not healed, but I will say this. God had a plan for him. And God had a plan for that disease that he's going through. He's not able to walk around with me or go for runs or climb mountains. When I was a kid, I always dreamed. I said, I'd love to go in the backyard and throw a football with my dad. And I would always go to these prayers throughout the week with my mom. And all these old ladies would pray that, oh, God's gonna heal your dad. God's gonna do this. God's gonna do that. And so for some time, I'm like, well, they said they were praying for it. Why didn't God do it? Why didn't God heal them? It's not because he's an unjust God. It's not because he's evil. It's because he has a plan through that sickness. It's because he has a plan through what my dad is going through to bring others to Christ. And let me tell you, my dad is one of the most happiest people I know, but he is going through tough pain every single day. Whenever he walks into a place, he's got this smile. He's happy. He's joyful. Yet you know that he's going through a tough time. You know that he has a lot of pain. But it's been cool to see over the years how God has taken his smile, even though he's in that circumstance, and used it for his kingdom. Because I'll tell you right now, I have seen countless times my dad go into stores, be out places, talking to people. And because he's smiling through that pain, because he's got that joy of the Lord within him, knowing that God is the author of his life and that he has a plan for him through this, he has been able to lead others to Christ. He has been able to help and assist God in leading others into a relationship with him. All because he trusted God's authority over the situation, over what was going on. Psalm 9:10 says this, and those who know your name put their trust in you. For you, O Lord, have not forsaken those who seek you. Let me tell you, if you are going through some difficulties, if maybe home life isn't that good, you don't have the best relationship with your mom or dad, your grandma, your grandpa, whoever it may be, let me just tell you, seek the Lord. Because God has a plan for that relationship. He has a plan for that home life. But you have to trust his authority through that plan. You have to trust that he knows best and that he is gonna make light of a situation that right now seems dark. He's gonna make light of a situation that, I don't know if God can do that. Let me tell you right now, he can. We've seen healing. There has been a lot of healing that we have seen as Christians. And let me tell you, it's not just in the Bible. It's right here today. And God is here to heal relationships. He is here to heal sicknesses. He is here to heal everything. But we have to put our trust in his authority and trust in God. So we're trusting in his authority. And this is the hard one for me. This is difficult. Trusting in his timing. Woo! There are a lot of things that I want. There are a lot of things that I desire. Yet, I'm gonna be honest with you. There's a lot of things I'm really not ready for yet. I want another kid one day. I'm not ready for it. I'm not waking up enough in the middle of the night to help with that. I'm not ready for it. I want one, not ready for it. It's all about trusting in God's timing. If it were to happen, praise God. I'm gonna trust in his timing, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not ready for it. There's a lot of struggle that I have in timing. And I'm sure many of us in this room struggle with timing as well, and seeing things that you're wanting right here in this moment, and they're not happening. Or maybe they're getting delayed till a later date. I grew up without a cell phone. I know that's foreign to y'all. y'all got cell phones out the womb. But when I was your age, I did not have a cell phone. When I was 15, my parents gave me this little flip phone where I had minutes on it. I could only text so much. I could only call so much. And they always told me, all right, when you turn 16, you're going to be able to drive on your own. We won't be with you all the time. That's when we're going to give you an iPhone. And so I was ready. I was excited. I'd gone to school so much and seen all my friends with these iPhones. And back then it was like the blue, yellow, and pink ones. Like those were cool. I wanted one of them. But it wasn't the right timing yet. My parents had a different plan for me. And I'll tell you why it wasn't the right timing. Because at that age, there were a lot of different things that I could have gotten into. There's a lot of different people that I could have been talking to that I shouldn't have been talking to. A lot of different things I could be watching on my phone that I shouldn't have been watching. And I was angry, I was upset. Y'all, let me tell you, me and my brother, we had a plan. We said, all right, the new iPhone just came out. My parents were a little bit nicer to us. They were always nice, but just a little bit nicer then. And so we're like, all right, they're gonna get us a new iPhone. I'm excited for this. So it's that time where you pre-order it, and you pre-order it by this time, it comes to your house on the day it comes out. And so we conjured up this plan to go through my mom's phone. Bad idea. Never do that. So we found out her password. We got on her phone and we looked through her email to see if they had ordered the iPhones, the new ones. And they did. They got 2 of them. And I was like, ooh, we're about to get a new iPhone. Finally, I'm going to go to school and be cool again. My mom found out that we went through her phone. Turns out those iPhones were not for us. My parents were getting an upgrade, and I got downgraded. I got my phone taken away. But I wasn't trusting that God had a timing for that. My parents have authority over me. Y'all's parents have authority over you, given to them from God. And so sometimes we have to come into this posture of trusting God's authority over us, which he has given to our parents, which in fact, we must trust his timing. Trusting God's timing means that we have to understand his delays aren't denials. Just because it's delayed, just because I didn't get that iPhone right then, right now, doesn't mean it's a denial. And we have to trust that God is working through those situations, that God is working through his plan during that sickness, that God is working through that plan during that tough time at school with that person that's a little bit mean to you. We have to trust that God has a plan through it all. Psalm 46:10 says this, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." When it comes to trusting God's timing, sometimes we just have to be still. We just have to be in that posture of waiting for it to happen. Because let me tell you, if it is in God's will, it will happen. And if it's not in God's will, he has a plan that you wouldn't even believe if he told you. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says this, "For everything there is a reason or a season and a time for every matter under heaven." There are going to be times, there are going to be seasons where it's harder than another one. Where there may be a couple more struggles, there may be more difficulties during that time, but it's all for a reason, because God and his authority and his timing trumps what we believe. It goes above and beyond what we think is the right timing. It goes above and beyond what we think is a good plan for us. And so we have to trust in him. And so We're trusting his authority. We're trusting God's timing. And in that, we have to trust in God's plan, even when it's beyond our understanding. There have been a lot of times in my life where I just didn't understand. Let me tell you, I did not want to go to Southeastern. My parents forced me here. I did not understand during that time why I was being sent down to this school. But let me tell you, there was a plan because God put people around me who I didn't want to be around, but he put people around me who were good influences, who helped build me up and build my relationship with God so that I could start to study being a youth pastor, so that I could start taking Bible classes instead of business classes. And I'll tell you what, on that drive down here from North Carolina, I did not understand what God was doing. I wouldn't even say I trusted it. But now, it's easier for me to look around and wonder and be astounded because he did something that I wasn't even asking for. He did something that he had a plan for in my life. Even when I didn't want it, he knew that that is something that I would be good at, that it is something that he has called me to do. And so we have to trust his plans for our lives, even when we don't understand it. Now, trusting in God's plan requires recognizing that his ways are higher than our ways. His ways are what? That's right. Isaiah 55, 8-9 says this, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts." Meaning that what we want for ourselves, what we have planned for ourselves, God has something planned for us that is 10 times better. God has something for us that is way more unimaginable than we could even think. But we have to come to that posture of trusting in his plan. We can't always grasp, and we probably won't always grasp or understand why things happen, why this is going this way when I want to go this way. But we can come into that understanding that God has higher thoughts than ours. That our thoughts are not as high as his, and that he has a way, and he will make a way out of a situation that we don't even know is there. And that all comes from us trusting in his authority, trusting in his timing, and ultimately trusting in his plan. And our role in it all is to have faith that he will do it. To have faith that his plan is greater than our plan. To have that trust that he is a God and he is our God who will fight for us, who loves us, and who has a plan for all of our lives. Jeremiah 29:11 says this, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and hope." God has a plan for all of our lives. He has a future and a hope for all of us, no matter what situation we are in. No matter what's going on at home, no matter what's going on at school, God has a plan for you. And all he's asking us to do is trust in him and trust that he will make a way. Everybody, let's stand.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to check out our previous sermons, and make sure you go follow our other social channels on Facebook and Instagram.